Maybe you live in an apartment, a condo, or a nunnery and you can't make a lot of noise late at night. Maybe you don't have an amp, or your amp is at your practice space and you don't want to haul it back and forth. Well, never fear. We can still get great sounding guitars with amp modelers. I'm Keith from No Label, No Producer, No Limits.com, and I record all my guitars this way. Let me show you how. We do need a few pieces of gear in order to do what we're going to do today. Obviously a guitar, there's an audio interface, a computer, and Reaper, which is the software I use to record. If there's some of this stuff that you don't have, there will be an equipment list below the video. So first we're going to start off by recording a couple guitar tracks, and I'll show you how to set the levels and listen to Neural Amp Modeler, which is the amp modeler we're going to be using today, as we are recording. And then I'm going to swing back and we'll pick up how to install it as a plugin, where to find the sounds, how to download them, and how to deal with any technical issues that might arise. Ready? Okay, I have a blank session open in Reaper. And to create a new track, I'm going to double-click over here in this track control panel, it's called. And we can drag the bottom of this track down to make it taller. And we will record arm it right here. Now plug a cable into your guitar and plug the other end into an audio interface. I'm plugged into input number 1, so I'm going to choose input number 1 here on Reaper. Now, in order to make sure we can hear everything, I will turn this record monitoring button to auto. It's time to set levels. I've got my guitar turned up and the pickup selected. Let's take a look at my audio interface. Level 2 is my voice. Level 1 is the guitar. Let's see what kind of levels I'm getting. Too hot, I'm peaking, so let's turn that down a little bit. My top peak should be around -6. Maybe just a touch hot there still. Okay. That's good. Now let's call up Neural Amp Modeler. I'm going to click the effects button and type in Neural, and there we have it. Now here you see NAM, as it's called, has 2 slots to fill here. We have a model and we have an IR. Some models include just the amp head, and some include the head and the speaker combination. And so if we have a combination, we just load something up in this first slot. If it's just an amp head capture, we will add an IR, which is basically a speaker emulation. So let's click here, and I'm going to navigate to the folder that contains my Neural Amp Modeler captures. Let's see what we got here. Try this one. If you hear that kind of fizziness up on top, that's because this is just the head. Guitar speakers' frequency response are generally limited to mostly mid-range, so that's going to take a lot of that fizz out. Let's select an IR. So I'm going to navigate to where I have my IR files. And let's try a creamback. I'm going to navigate through these a little bit. That one's better than this one. That one's heavier. I like this one. It's a little bass heavy. I'm going to pull some bass off, push a touch of mid, and quite a bit of treble. And I'm going to come down on the input gain just a little bit. It'll work just like an amplifier. That takes a little of the distortion off. Okay, I have snap enabled, and I have the grid lines, which are just these lines here, and the metronome on. And what all of this means is that I can select exactly 4 measures quite easily with snap. So I'll click on this measure marker and drag across 4 measures. And now I have 2 measures of count off with just the metronome, and then 4 measures where I will record. And that's true if I have this mode selected. I'll right click on the record mode button and make sure record mode time selection auto punch. That just says, hey, record where you're selected. Okay, let's go. Let's take this track out of record ready, create a new track, record ready. Let's call up Neural Amp Modeler. We'll just pick a sound here randomly. Make sure this is in auto mode. Needs an IR. Okay, let's try that. I'm going to play some slightly different voicings here. Well, this one's already panned to the left. Let's pan this one to the right. Okay, let's take this track out of record ready and let's label these. I'm going to double click here, label this guitar 1, and we'll label this one guitar 2. I have this auto color thing set up, and let's make them about the same size. Just for fun, let's double this out and make it twice as long. The fastest way to get better at your home recordings is to have a mentor. I have a program, the Home Recording Mentorship Program. There's a link below the video. Check it out. Let me show you the sound without Neural Amp Modeler. This is just the direct sound into the computer. We're using the amp sim as an effect on top of that. Let's solo this one up and work with some sounds. I'm going to tonehunt.org, and this is where you can get Neural Amp Modeler sounds and IRs. Let's look for some. I'm going to click on search and type crunch. Now you can see here we have this little icon that says amp, and if I scroll down, we can see that there are some full rig captures as well with this little amp and speaker cabinet icon. I'm curious about this AC30 British crunch. Click on it, and you see it says try with NAM online. Now it's picking up my microphone here. I need to change this so... Mic line instrument 1, that'll be my guitar feeding into this now. As you remember, my guitar is plugged into number 1. We can upload a DI track like the one we just recorded and listen to it through this model. But I'm satisfied. I'd just like to download this one. We'll download it. Comes in a zip file. I'm going to drop this into the folder where I have my NAM files. Neural Amp Modeler right there. Paste it in there and unzip. Okay, let me get that name. And now let's go to Neural Amp Modeler and load that one up. I'll go to the folder and do a search. There we have it. See what it sounds like. Now, I think a super important part of your sound is going to be your speaker emulation. Right here, I have a folder with several IRs in it, and you can find IRs in Tonehunt as well. What I like to do is combine a cream back on one side with a green back on the other side, mix them up. Different speakers are going to emphasize different parts of the spectrum, so it helps guitars to blend. Let's go through this folder of Celestian creambacks, and you can see this is how close the microphone is to the cabinet and whether it was pointed at the center of the cone or off center, on axis or off axis. These are all on axis, it looks like. But let's open one up and then we'll just page through them and see how they sound. I'm going to put this in. Like this one right here. Let's push the input up a little bit. This will act pretty much like your preamp volume on an amp, and so we'll get more distortion. I like that sound. What did we have on the other side? Let's take a listen to how those sound together. This one has less distortion now, and I think this one has more. I'm thinking this guy has a little too much bass in it still. So what if we just go to a clean sound on this guy? Let's see what happens. So I'm just going to go to the folder and search for clean. Let's try this Laney. Interesting. So we can get a variety of guitar sounds happening just by changing the amp, and the IR is one of the best ways to change the tone. Now, I showed you a lot of distorted and crunchy guitar sounds, but Tonehunt has amps for every type of player. There's Roland Jazz Chorus, PV, there's Fender Princetons and Twins, including some vintage gear. There's Marshall Stacks and boutique amps like Engel and Bogner. It's all there. Almost every kind of amp you can think of or something close has been uploaded to Tonehunt. And everything that you saw today is free. There are companies that are offering paid neural amp models and paid IRs, but everything we saw today was free. It's a marvelous, incredible time to be a guitar player. Let's talk for just a second about file structure. This is how I wish I would have set mine up and how you should probably set yours up. Have a folder for Neural Amp Modeler. You can just call it NAM or whatever. And then inside that, have folders for amp head only captures, full rig captures, and IRs. I sometimes don't know when I'm looking through the captures and I want either a full rig or an amp head only, and I don't know which capture is which type. There's no standardized nomenclature for that right now. So I would organize my files this way, and when you download a capture, just put it right in the proper folder and unzip it, and you'll be organized and your sessions will move quickly.
I just smile and say, I'll be there in no time. So I just smile and say, I'll be there in no time. I plan my getaway, gonna leave all this behind. No, I'm not gonna stay, gonna hit the road and feel the wind upon my face, my mind, instead of living this slow life. I just smile and say, I'll be there in no time.
Type home recording in the comments to get more information on the Home Recording Mentorship Program. So how do you install Neural Amp Modeler? Well, let's go to neuralampmodeler.com and we can click on play and then download the proper model for our operating system. That's downloading now, and install it like you would install any other program. Now, if you close down Reaper and open it up again, it should find Neural Amp Modeler. And if it doesn't, here's what you do. Search your computer for neuralampmodeler.vst3. And wherever that is, it looks like it's installed for me in C, Program Files, Common Files, VST3. Take that path and put it into Reaper in the following manner. Go to Options, Preferences, and then down here to VST. These are all the paths that Reaper looks to find if there are effects in them. So if it doesn't find NAM, it means the path is not in here. So the file paths are separated by a semicolon. So copy that file path, if it's not in here already, paste it in at the beginning, and then hit semicolon, and click OK. Now, for me, it's already in there, so I'm going to leave that out. That's what you do if Reaper doesn't see Neural Amp Modeler. And then you should be able to close Reaper and then open it back up again, and it should scan it. Let's talk about how to diagnose problems we might run into when recording amp sims. The first one is latency. So when you're playing guitar, latency is the time it takes from the signal going from your guitar into your computer and back out again. And generally, a few milliseconds is okay, but if you start to get up there above about 15 milliseconds of delay, what you hear comes after what you're playing, and that can be very disconcerting. So how do we deal with latency? Let's take a look up here. We're seeing 26 milliseconds of latency. Let's go to Options, Preferences, Device, and we'll set this request block size to 64. 3.5 milliseconds. Now that means our CPU has to work harder, so if you hear pops or crackles, you're going to have to increase that block size. Problem number two I see in the forums all the time, people say, hey, I'm hearing my original guitar sound, my dry, direct guitar sound, and I just want to hear the amp sound. What can I do? And the answer is in your audio interface. You're listening to what's called the direct sound. My Evo has a function here, and I can click it and turn this all the way to the sound from the computer, as shown by this icon, or turn it all the way to the sound from the microphone or the guitar, whatever's plugged in. And so if I just want to hear the guitar sound, I turn it all the way to the computer side. On a previous audio interface I had, there was a switch that said direct monitoring on or off. So if we're recording through an amp sim, we probably want direct monitoring off. What happens if your computer isn't powerful enough to handle the amp sim and you're getting latency? In that case, I would turn the record monitoring off, and I would turn the interface to listen to the sound coming in. Now, you won't have the amp sim sound until playback, but you'll be able to hear your guitar with no latency. I have a program that helps musicians make better sounding home recordings. It's called the Home Recording Mentorship Program. If you're interested, leave the words home recording in the comments below. I'd like to thank Stephen Atkinson for creating Neural Amp Modeler and all the incredible people who have contributed their amp models. For now, I'm Keith Livingston from No Label, No Producer, No Limits.com. See you soon. Bye-bye.